What up, Hyperchange? Welcome to another episode. Today, I'm doing an interview from LD Micro Conference here in Los Angeles. I've got the co-founder and CEO of Tesloop. We're going to be talking all about Tesla, longevity, total cost of ownership, battery degradation. I think Tesloop, in addition to being a really cool service, Tesla Taxi service, has collected some of the most comprehensive and important data in all of the electric vehicle industry by operating Teslas for hundreds of thousands of miles. So really excited to have you on, Rahul, and talk about just kind of everything Tesloop and operating a fleet of Teslas.
Okay.
So Tesloop launched in 2015. I think you guys have done 25,000 rides in the original service. You had a 5-star Yelp rating, millions of miles done in Teslas.
Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about how that concept started and just like a brief overview of the story?
Sure, yeah. So interesting story. My son, who's 20 now, was 16, and it actually started as a school project for him. Then, once Elon said, you're going to be able to sleep in a car in 3 years, that got me and some of my other co-founders excited. So we joined in 2015. And the original idea was really based on this premise that Teslas and electric cars in general really shine on a per mile cost. Like the more you run them, the cheaper they are. So we said, where can we do a lot of highway miles? And the answer was, let's offer kind of a long distance Uber pool. So not from like Santa Monica to Venice, but rather from Santa Monica to San Diego or Santa Monica to Vegas or Palm Springs, kind of 1 to 4 hours in a car. So we launched that. We ran it for about 3 years. People just loved it. That was really a model where autonomy was just starting and evolving and wasn't something you could really trust at the time. But the economics were still really good. So we ran that until last year. And then last year, partially due to some California labor law changes that made it more costly to hire drivers, but partially because when we launched, a car was $120,000. There were 4 chargers between here and Vegas. Took 90 minutes to charge. And now, a car is $40,000. There's 80 chargers between here and Vegas. It takes 30 minutes to charge, and the cars drive themselves more or less. From here to Vegas, like basically the car can completely drive itself. Yeah, and I've done that route like 100 times, and doing it on autopilot is so much more pleasant than actually, making sure you're driving okay. So we've now switched to a model that we think is really the future. It is the robotaxi long distance model with one kind of exception. It's kind of like the dumb robotaxi where you have to be behind the wheel and hold the wheel. But like other than that, we think it is the same thing that'll be available in 5 years in a fully autonomous car, where you need to have the car at a charger. So the car is going to leave the charger. Today you Uber to the car, you open it, remotely. It's all kind of digitally controlled, and you drive in Santa Monica 4 blocks to the 10. We've already pushed the destination onto the car because you can do that now. You press navigate on autopilot, and it takes you to the bottom of the ramp in San Diego or in Vegas. So it's kind of like the first inning of automatic robotaxi type stuff, but obviously due to laws and just the fact that the autonomy is usually but not always fully reliable.
And it's fascinating because that's this whole idea of are people going to be operating fleets of robo-taxis when this happens? And I think that's where this is all kind of going, and you're kind of building the blocks for that to start just with humans. And I guess the second Tesla releases FSD, the humans are out, and you guys have already built the business, the brand, the routes. And you were showing me the app. I'll put up some footage, which is really cool. You just kind of place in the city you want to go. It's like I'm looking at train or bus tickets, but they're just in a Tesla.
Yeah, it's just like a cross between Avis and American Airlines for booking a car.
Really cool. And I love that concept. And in doing all this, you've accumulated, you showed this slide, actually ran into you at the Sandy Munro EV conference, and you did a presentation, which was amazing. Some of the slides are from that. And you showed this slide that was 8 of the most driven Teslas in the world. You had 6 of them or something.
I think 8 out of 10, yeah.
Or 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
And the amount of miles, we're talking hundreds of thousands of miles. So over that ownership, EVs are very new, Tesla's a new brand. Not that many people have driven these cars anywhere near that distance. So can you tell us about what you found and the difference of, a Model S or X versus the traditional ICE kind of competitor?
Yeah, I think the most important just summary of all of that is you've seen a lot of these total cost of ownership comparisons on, Clean Technica or Inside EV or whatever, and everybody's like, oh, they're kind of comparable for 5 years of personal ownership. And I think that's true. But if you take 10 years of personal ownership, the Tesla is going to last 10 years of personal ownership easily. Like, you won't even be scratching. You probably won't have any like kind of scheduled maintenance in that period if you go 200,000 miles or something. We have cars, 465,000 miles is the top car. I was in it yesterday. We were driving to Faraday Future, and we were, it just drives perfectly. Usually we rent it out every day. It makes the same amount of money as a new car does on a rental model because it just feels new and it drives new.
Wow.
But
That's
if
incredible.
you think of our total maintenance on all of our cars are over 250,000 miles, a few of them over 350, and we're talking between $10,000 and $20,000 of total maintenance cost in that period. So that is incredibly low compared to a ICE vehicle. And when we look at the Model 3s and model them out, we have kind of a 5 cent per mile set aside. So if you were to go 500,000 miles, we think $25,000 of maintenance.
Okay,
Is,
as a general rule of thumb.
yeah,
sort of?
a good rule of thumb. I think that's a little bit, that's a Model 3 that you bought like this year, not one that you buy next year that might be much better. So if you can drive them enough, if you can drive them 300,000 or 500,000 miles, they become radically cheaper than anything else. Like a Model 3 is cheaper than a Toyota Corolla by almost 2x at 500,000 miles.
And so, forgive me because I'm kind of dumb. I don't even have a car, but if
Yeah.
I were to drive an ICE car for 500,000 miles, what's the comparable, like a Camry? Is
Yeah.
it 5 cent, like...
Yeah, so I think like if you take everything, if you take the car and insurance and maintenance and fuel, and you're probably talking for a Camry something around just under 60 cents a mile. But you
Wow.
you don't go 500,000 miles. It's inefficient to go that far because you'll continually have to maintain it, after 200,000. So basically you get rid of the car at 200,000 and it goes
Wow.
who knows where.
And so what at a high level is enabling, because clearly it's something to do with the electric vehicle architecture,
Yeah.
there's less parts, it's
Yeah.
a battery, so what's really enabling, it's just the simplicity of the design?
Yeah,
That means there's less things that
I
can
mean,
go wrong?
clearly, like, just the biggest factor is the longevity of the drivetrain. The fact that,
Okay.
I don't think anybody's worn out a Tesla motor so far. There have been defective ones that they've replaced.
Yeah.
But like, the guy hit 1,000,000 kilometers or whatever. Like, you're not wearing these motors out. So
And we're talking about the powertrain, like sort of box?
yeah, the motor and the rest of the drivetrain. I think the only problems people have had is with the batteries, and we've had some battery problems, that has been replaced under warranty by Tesla. But we have a car over 350,000 on its first battery also. So
Wow.
and it has 15% degradation or something, so it's not like new, but like clearly they're very close to getting to batteries that can last 500,000 miles, maybe who knows what's up their sleeve beyond that. But so that drivetrain takes the like car cost on a per mile basis down from like 25 cents to 10 cents. And then fuel on electric is much cheaper than gas. Both gas and electricity varies a lot depending on like Florida versus California, but just
Totally.
generally it's about half price or less on a per mile basis. Then I think we would expect insurance to start coming down. It hasn't really happened yet. And then maintenance is just radically cheaper. And maintenance, really, you have two wins. One is less you spend, but if you're doing commercial, the other really important factor is less time that the car is in the shop, and especially unexpectedly. So if I'm just not worrying about, we were running 17,000 miles every month, every car, which meant we would have to do basically 3 oil changes a month if it was a gas car, which meant it would have been out of circulation like half the day every.
Oh, so it's not even about the cost, it's about the time, the
Well, it's both,
logistics
yeah.
of figuring out how do you
exactly, and if
Wow.
if some like once you get cars, I think over a couple 100,000 miles, you just can't maintain reliability in a gas car with some very few diesel exceptions
Wow.
and things like that. So it's all of these factors together, and clearly. Tesla has a very holistic strategy here. They are like doing everything. And now with the Cybertruck, now you have issues of, I don't have to worry about damage to the shell and
The windshield isn't going to chip.
yeah, the
as
windshield's not
ironic
going
as
to
that was
chip.
from the
So
unveiling.
exactly. So it's really, a lot of people looked at the Cybertruck as, this is, designed to, this is built for your middle American guy who buys a Ford 150. And when I left the event, I'm like, this car was built for us, like a robotaxi fleet. Like just
Wow.
clearly, to me, like the capabilities of lockability of different portions of it and monitoring, and it has its own security and everything like that. You can do the commercial potential not only for moving people, which it can do very well with 6 people, any terrain, any weather. Like if there's a hurricane, you're going to want to bunker up in the Cybertruck like that.
And it'll charge itself too, even if the grid's out. That's insane.
With
that's
the solar,
so cool.
I think that was a brilliant little add-on that just changes
That's like my favorite quirky
game,
feature of the car.
The ability to programmatically control it remotely, whether it's what's locked, who has access to it. Maybe I'll give you access to the front, but only 9 to 5, and this guy has access to the back, from different times, like all programmatically administratable. This is a complete game changer. Nobody can steal anything because of all the cameras. So it's just like there's no other like vehicle platform that is like that. There's some of these kind of aftermarket fleet management things, but it's completely different when the vehicle is natively digital and literally everything in the vehicle can be controlled digitally. So then it's just a question of what does Tesla expose and what do they not expose.
Totally. And so how many have you ordered?
So I talked to a guy like 2 days on Facebook. He just friended me. He read a Cybertruck article on Clean Technica that I wrote, and he's like, I ordered 53 trucks. And he's like, you're totally right.
Because of this kind of thesis.
Yes, because of
so
this thesis.
So is Tesloop going to move into Cybertruck rides
Yeah,
as well?
I mean, my general thesis on the Cybertruck is for mobility, it obsoletes every other Tesla. And I think, the Model 3 obsoletes every other car.
So what do you think about my moonshot of the Cyber van, or where they adapt? We're actually here with Arcomoto.
Yeah.
Who even gave me that idea of
Yeah,
basically extending the cab for more passengers. Like,
Yeah.
imagine if you could fit 10 people in there.
Yeah. So I think there's a big question of, do you do that with, like generally with the Cybertruck, I agree it is a platform, and I think it is a platform also with the trailer. I think I would expect the trailer to have battery that is like interchargeable eventually. And I'm a little unclear on whether you do all your innovation on the trailer and just leave the truck as it is, or if you try to make 10 form factors of the
different steel shapes, like a bag.
of shapes. Like I don't know enough about manufacturing costs and everything, but there could be an argument to say just make 2 sizes of the truck, like large and petite, and then make a trailer skateboard that anybody can build, a camper or some specialized this or that. And Tesla would have a passenger trailer, and they would have a cargo trailer, and then basically you get the wins there. Because I think there's definitely some efficiencies of being able to, let's say when you're loading 10 people, usually what you want to do is if you're a high-class passenger operation, you want to have that there, and people can kind of come in half an hour early or 10 minutes early and wait, and then you leave.
Yep.
But if it's just the trailer, now you can do that, and the truck can still be moving. You're not taking up the time of the propulsion unit. So whether it's going to a job site and having the Cybertruck drop off the trailer with all your roofing shingles in it, and then it goes off and it moves something from Home Depot and this and that. Like I think that modularity may be a big win in many cases, and maybe just the most generalizable thing. I mean, eventually, clearly, you'll have specialized units, but if there may be a thesis where Tesla is like, no, we can do much better to just build one thing.
Totally.
No changes, and then here's a skateboard platform, go to town on that.
I could actually see them doing that, because
Yeah.
that seems more aligned with like simplicity and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So the Cybertruck, and the other thing about utility is this 1,000,000-mile battery. So
Yes.
what you were talking about is the motor can go 1,000,000 miles. And this is one huge step. They want to make the battery go 1,000,000 miles. And the Cybertruck is so durable. What this all amounts to is like, this is an amazing commercial fleet vehicle. It's just as much practical as it is looking cool, which I think has kind of been, that's what you're hitting on, which I think has just been totally overlooked. And just in a broader sense, like this to me is that I don't hear any other car companies pushing so hard on this 1,000,000-mile problem like Tesla is. And I feel like this is going to be a huge differentiator because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, even if you do come out with an electric car for $40,000, it's just not going to last as long as the Model 3, and the total cost of ownership is kind of a no-brainer. So I don't know. How do you think about the implications? Because I guess why I was so excited to have you on the show is I just don't think the auto industry has grasped the implications of this data that you have actually uncovered, which is that the electric motor is like definitively so much cheaper to operate per mile. And nobody's pricing this in.
Right. And there's one interesting implication of that. If your car lasts 1,000,000 miles, what you actually want to do is try to drive it like 200,000 or 300,000 miles a year, because what you don't want is like a 10-year-old car with like 500,000 miles on it, because then it's really old. It'll be like using like an iPhone 3 or something. Yeah, it still works, but it's just old tech. People won't feel good about it. So the more you can drive it every year, the better. And if you drive to Vegas and back every day, that's 200,000 miles a year. If you were to do that, like also at night, that's about 300,000 miles a year. So you can definitely drive that amount. And the interesting thing with the Cybertruck is during the day it can cruise around, whether it's Santa Monica to Venice or Santa Monica to San Diego with people, all their luggage, if it's to the airport. But then at night it could just tow stuff. You'd need more charging and some automated charging solutions and what have you. But in an autonomous world, or even if you're paying somebody to tow stuff, it's still going to be the cheapest way to move, 10,000 pounds in the history of transportation. A train would be cheaper to move, 10 tons or something, but nothing will be cheaper to move 10,000 pounds than the
really
Cybertruck.
Cool way to say it.
And the other just random kind of reaction to what I've heard about the Cybertruck is that a lot of truck people is like, I drive 500 miles and with towing this won't pull enough. Like, yeah, I think there are scenarios where the range considerations of the truck, and if you don't have charging and what have you, you'll get more and more charging.
But we're all going to go electric. So you think Ford's going to be able to solve that challenge better than Tesla with an electrified F-150? Not a chance.
No.
So that's why even that comparison is not apples to apples.
But the other interesting fact is, if you really do drive 500 miles in tow, you'll save like $100 every day with the Cybertruck. Like the cost of electricity is so much cheaper that, you might have to wait an hour, but you'll be paid $100 to wait an hour to charge twice a day or something. So like you're getting compensated handily for all the time you wait. So like people don't factor in like full cost structure of commercial use. And again, if you're a fleet of 1,000 trucks, Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, the administratability of I know where every truck is every day. I know if it's not
I
moving
get
for
any
the
data
job.
on any truck.
Any data. I know when the batteries. I know I can tell you how much it's worth. I know when I should sell it. I know when I can lease it out for nighttime Vegas runs. To earn money back without unlocking the back maybe for passengers. There's so many. It's so versatile. It's really a big change.
Okay, so moving forward a little bit, one of the secret sauces I think Tesla has is battery management software. Or just software in general is their secret sauce. And so you've also been collecting a ton of data about battery degradation. And it looks like the Tesla's batteries hold up extremely well. They do lose charge kind of a little bit each year, but could you tell us about some of the findings with that?
So, we have a sample of like 8 cars, so I'd say this is not statistical, it's kind of anecdotal, but I think what we found is that, in general, even if you treat the battery horribly, like for our first car, we charged it 5 times a day to 100%.
Like at a supercharger.
At a supercharger.
Which is like the worst, for those non-Tesla, that's like the one, that's the worst, which you're allowed to do it, but it's just good practices. That's the opposite.
But, it went 220,000 miles. It was still a, kind of relatively early 2015 model. So even with that, that's longer than any gas car would typically last, and then Tesla replaced the battery because it was under warranty. It's an 8-year unlimited mile warranty on the S's and X's. But like for other X's with, over 250 or 350K, we see degradation. we still treat the batteries relatively poorly, and we cycle them a lot, because for us it's a
well, you have to. You're the type of business that's really leveraging the most out of the battery. You need to get that range.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
makes sense. It's
So
not like you're just doing it to
like
be mean.
the increment of 100 or 1,000 passengers waiting 5 minutes is more expensive than getting a new battery for us, when we need to. So there's kind of those considerations. But I think the interesting thing about the batteries is the cost differential between replacing a 3 battery. Elon has said it's like $6,000, and I think nobody's ever done that yet. But I don't think
the battery replacements are getting cheaper.
Yeah, they're getting much cheaper.
Much cheaper. And did you look at the Model 3 data that Bloomberg came out with about degradation? It almost looked better than the data you have. Or they're constantly even improving that industry-leading battery degradation.
And that may be because generally consumers treat their batteries much better than we do. Like, they don't stress them, so it can be both factors. True. But yeah, I think it's hard to imagine that Tesla does not maintain a strong lead in batteries, and the big question is, are other companies getting closer, or are other companies getting farther? And I feel like other companies are getting farther in terms of a holistic suite. Like, maybe any one company, if you look at autonomy and durability and
over-the-air updates,
battery, software, UX, games, all that, there may be a company that can kind of compete with Tesla on one element of something, but but the value to me of the car, especially in a commercial scenario, is you need all of that. And if you have one missing link, the security doesn't work, or it's not durable, or the autonomy doesn't work. It'd be why would to me, when the Cybertruck comes out, why would you buy a truck that doesn't have incredible autopilot?
Well, that's another thing I want to touch on, is what you said is, even though when you do have the driver, it's not driving itself, but it's making the drive a lot easier for you, because it's all on the highway, which is where autopilot's amazing. So that sort of changes the game versus someone driving a normal car.
Right, and I think I maybe have a slightly contrarian view on how this evolves. I think a lot of people, everybody's opinion on autonomy is all over the map. Ford's it'll take 20 years, and
Elon's 6 months.
Exactly. But to me, I feel like people very much think of autonomy as binary. It's either autonomous or it's not. And I even think Elon views it that way. He's we'll get to autonomy, and then regulation will just follow relatively quickly, a year or two after. To me, my guess, and just pure speculation though, is that the cars will get better and better at driving, and then eventually the governments, I think, before they say a car can drive itself, will say, hey, you can take your hands off the wheel, you don't need to pay attention. Because I think the scenarios that are fundamentally going to trip the car up are when the police shut down the road, or there are flares in the road, or there's something really weird going on.
Yeah, and the car is just stopped in the middle of the highway, and just refuses to move. Then you need to be
Or I've been at the Venetian casino on Christmas Day. You cannot turn into it. There's a stream of people that never ever stops. They go through the light. That car, an autonomous car, would just be stuck there because people won't. You have to nudge your way in.
Mad Max mode it.
Yeah, it'd be hard to Mad Max in a nudging mode without hitting people. But so I think there may be in 2 years the car drives better than anybody, but for another 2 or 3 or 4 years, depending on where you are, you can't just let that car go on the street by itself. So there may be a longer period of that. But I think for fleet managers, if you can hire, now when you hire somebody to fix your cable, you also have to make sure they know how to drive a truck, and that they're a good truck driver. And I wouldn't mind if my cable repairman maybe had a DUI 3 years ago, but I wouldn't, if you wouldn't want him driving a truck if that was the case. But once you have really, really good autonomy, it just changes the game on driver management, which is there's drug testing, there's all sorts of just huge considerations in it, and it means that so many people who could do job X, if it was just about sitting in the car, can do it in an autonomous car, but they can't if it's about driving the car.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you think this evolves? How does Tesla, where do you go from here? How does autonomy tie into your business model, and this sort of idea versus urban autonomy versus more long distance autonomy? Because you kind of have a variant perception there
Yeah.
that I think is worth unpacking.
Yeah. So I think if you look at Tesla, their strategy is very much they're going to compete with Uber and Lyft in San Francisco and LA and New York, and they're going to do that in the next 2 years or whatever. 3
Everyone
years.
just assumes when you say autonomy, it's like city Uber.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And we have, I would say, what I think is a very well-informed, very contrarian opinion. And that is that if you want to make money on a Tesla robotaxi or even a Tesla almost robotaxi, like, not fully driverless, but with good autopilot, in both scenarios, the economics and the consumer demand is much higher on long distance. So if you have a choice of getting a Toyota Corolla here to take you to Santa Monica in 3 minutes, or a Tesla Model X in 20 minutes, for 5 miles, most people will just say, give me 3 minutes, I don't care, I just want to get there. But if it's the same thing going from here to Vegas for like 5 hours, you're like, I'll wait 20 minutes for the Model X. Like, what you care about for short term is you care about time to get to you, so you need massive scale. What you care about for long distance, what really matters is how comfortable is it, how safe is it on the highway. Autopilot becomes incredibly important, A, because it works there, and B, because it's 5 hours, not 10 minutes. And then
you said you have to make people feel like they're in a Starbucks. I remember you mentioned that. I think that's a very underrated part about this is the people. You got to deal with people still. And I think everyone's like, oh, it'll just be cheaper rides, you'll make money. But it's like, well, now I'm in the Tesla, and like I kind of want to be pampered. Or like, I want like, a drink.
Business is a hospitality business.
Yes, which is I don't think people think of it.
Yeah, and you want what do you get at a Starbucks? Wi-Fi, food, some drinks, a nice space, good HVAC, and total consistency every time you go there. That's exactly what you want in a robotaxi. And Starbucks gives you nice bathrooms, and you want the robotaxi to take you to a Starbucks if you need to.
Yeah.
So that's kind of for long distance mobility. Ultimately, what you want to provide people. But what's most important is none of that. It's just the economics.
Just the ROIC on my capital. Like renting on my robotaxi is going to be better if I set it on long distance trips.
Just really quick, back of the envelope. Let's say Seattle to Portland. That's 180 miles, a 3-hour drive. You can get a flight for $150, maybe economy. If you have whether it's autonomous and it picks you up, or you Uber to the car at the charger. Let's say you're charging $75 between Seattle and Portland. 3 hours, give it another hour for charging, so you could conceivably do 6 legs. 3 round trips, that's $450 a day.
Wow. And for the user experience, it's like a 3-hour car ride versus like an hour and a half flight or an hour flight.
Yeah, it's even less of a flight. It's 40 minutes, but by the time you get to the airport and then wait at the airport and go there, and then you're at Portland Airport, and then you got to get a train or an Uber down to downtown where you want to go. Whereas here, it's just wherever you want to go. There'll be, like in 3 years, there'll be 10 places to pick up a Tesla in Seattle, and there'll be 10 places to drop it in Portland. Portland actually has some nice municipal facilities. But it's $75. That's each way, which is half the price of a plane. But you can have, in a Cybertruck, you could have 6 people. That's like $12 a person. It's crazy cheap. It's cheaper than Greyhound. It's cheaper than a Chinese bus. It's the cheapest way to move people in history, and it will become the most flexible as charging increases. But that's $12,000 a month of revenue versus if you're running around Ubering people. I think Elon's estimate was like $50,000 a year, versus 130 or something, 140. So you can make almost twice as much money running long distance in a per car basis, and if you want to sell seats, you can make even more. And the thing is, selling seats works much better long distance because you're going to pick up 5 people. And you pay, let's say, a 5-minute tax on each one. If you're only going like 5 miles, you don't want to pay a 5-minute tax for 5 people. But if you're going 3 hours, it's fine. So there's so many things about long distance that fundamentally make the economics and the consumer experience. Like electrified autonomous cars have a much higher potential in long distance versus urban. But electric always beats gas, so it still beats gas on urban. It's just that the opportunity cost of not doing long distance.
Yeah, people aren't thinking about that.
And
so
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So like if you just do so what does this mean? Thought exercise. Basically, let's say you're increasing Teslas by 50% a year, so it's, 360, 600 million. At some point you're doing 5 million cars, and you're still going to run a lot of long distance, and then like the next year you're doing like 7.5, and now you have a surplus of cars, you can use them for whatever. So like we're going to be supply constrained on electric.
To start, yeah.
Because once you have really good autonomy, and again, I don't think you need regulatory autonomy. I think you just need really, really good autopilot, and then everybody wants to be in that car for long distance because it's effortless, the insurance is much lower, everything.
Wow. And that's why when Tesla, it's so much more about not a car company, it's really changing transportation, all these outside the box ways that you don't even think of.
Yeah.
So what's the future of Tesloop look like in 5 years? How do you see all this unfolding?
Yeah, and maybe I'll just preface with that is what is the future of Tesla and the automotive industry? And to me, I think things are going to converge to 2 or 3 platforms. Like you're going to have an iPhone, an Android, and maybe some weird Windows thing. And so you're going to have Tesla, you're going to have maybe a VW, Ford platform or something.
With Uber, one of them swallowed Uber.
Yeah, exactly. And then who knows what the other thing is. But I don't think you need 12 different car platforms and charging networks and software APIs and everything like that. You kind of, the software is going to become critical. Everybody's going to manage their cars. Everybody's going to talk to their car every minute. Like once you're in a fleet, not talking to your car every minute is a little silly. So I think Tesla is going to turn into kind of a hardware software platform, not that much different than an Android platform where you might run Android in device X or device Y and build a TV on top of it or this or that. And it's both kind of, but in their case, it's more like Apple where they're making all the hardware, at least
now,
the skateboards of all the hardware.
Garden.
Yeah. And then on top of that, we think there will be verticals like long distance trucking. Tesla's not going to operate that. Either new networks like Uber Freight will come up to, similar to that, probably
Tesla
not Uber.
Freight?
We're very focused on people, but with the Cybertruck, you do want to mix those because the device can do both, but it's kind of small freight. But we think, we will run long distance personal mobility, which looks like a regional airline that eventually will interface into every baggage handling system. So when you transfer from United to Horizon, now your bags show up at the airport. When you transfer from United to like Tesloop in 3 years, your bag should show up in the lobby of the MGM Hotel in Vegas or Palm Springs or wherever you are. I mean, really, like if you look at any big airport like Atlanta or Los Angeles or Boston, there's so many people coming from nearby cities because they don't have good airports that, that's literally in Atlanta, probably 20 million people a year or something. So just millions of people going 1 to 3 hours to get to Atlanta. So that's an area which I think will be a big part of our business. But fundamentally, electric cars will replace trains, planes, buses, and gas cars just to an increasing degree. They're getting the key thing is the cost of the train is not changing. 10 years ago, now, 10 years from now.
The experience isn't really changing either.
Experience isn't changing. Electric cars getting 10% cheaper a year or something, like over 10 years.
Well, you did all this with the Model S and X to start. Now we got the 3.
Yeah.
And so
it's, so
Cybertruck soon.
The electric car, to us, it is inevitable that it will eat into this regional mobility first, but obviously into everything else after that. But for regional mobility, it will really displace a large amount of those other systems that are just not flexible. It makes no sense to fly 2.5, something you could drive 2.5 hours.
And how many Teslas are you operating now? And do you purchase, are you expanding your fleet and continually purchasing Teslas?
Yeah. So we started out buying cars and hiring drivers, and we bought 8 cars. One of them got rear-ended by a drunk driver. So we have our fleet of 7. We're now onboarding new cars that are kind of owned by third parties strictly as an investment vehicle. And there's a very interesting tax benefit you can get from that because if your vehicle is commercially used, you can deduct 58 cents a mile. So for people with passive income, basically the government pays them fully for the use of their car.
Wow. And then you operate them on your network.
Yeah, and then we just operate them. They act as if they're our cars, but we don't legally own them. and that tax benefit is only available if you own less than 5 cars.
But longer term, you're just using that just to optimize the situation. You don't need that tax credit to make this a viable business.
No, that just makes it really appealing for the car investor. We don't actually
Okay.
see any of that money. So, we have, would say, a few hundred people signed up to buy cars. We're finalizing the insurance that we need to have on it, which is a little tricky because they're financing it, and the financier needs personal insurance, and we need 2 types of commercial insurance and rental insurance and everything. So that's kind of the next couple year strategy, and I think that segues into a world where car ownership and car utilization become very uncoupled, and you may own a car that eventually Comcast starts using every day. They may take their older cars and put them on Uber or whatever. So, once cars are appliances and you're not worried about dents and you're not worried about gaskets and you know everything about them every day, you don't need to bundle ownership and usage. You do now, because if I give you a car and you give it back to me $100,000, I don't know, is it an oil leak? Is it a gasket problem? I can't trust the state of the car.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because I think what we're scratching the surface of is Tesla. You're already buying, a bunch of Teslas to use to change transportation. And this whole concept of I don't own a Tesla, but how are my miles traveled? How does Tesla eat into that market share? And it's with things like Tesla.
Yeah.
So I think you're scratching the surface of just this much bigger sort of new chapter of Tesla that people are not thinking about. And so that's why I think it's so cool what you're doing. And I think either those Tesloop's going to expand like crazy, or 1 million people are going to start operating mini fleets like this. But you're it's a sneak preview into the future of mobility in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and we think fundamentally, again, for long distance mobility, you don't want 100 little networks, because you've got a problem kind of like an airline for yield management or Uber for surge pricing, but it's conceptually similar, but mechanically it's very different, where you have a fixed amount of cars always, and you always want to keep them moving for some revenue, and they can go to any other place. And when we started, you could book San Diego to Santa Monica, and then we added LAX, and now we add Vegas, so you can do San Diego to Vegas or Vegas to Santa Monica, and at any time anybody can book a car from any place to any place. So the network needs to just kind of dynamically configure.
So there is some network effects here that really...
Yeah, we think there's very big network effects within a region. If you own Southern California, it doesn't mean you have a lot of advantages in Florida. You might have some data advantages and scale advantages and stuff, but the network, fundamentally, every time you add a node, if you add Disney, if you add Santa Barbara, Palm Springs, now you get a geometrically higher number of routes, which means, and if you have 5 places in LA, now it's closer to almost everybody, because they don't have to go to Santa Monica if they're in West Hollywood or Burbank or whatever. So just the more charging, and charging is I think, completely unrealized constraint for mobility of all types. Basically now, I think when Tesla sells, for every 500 cars, I think that's the number, I might be a little bit off, but they need to build a supercharger pole. So if I sell 500 cars, 1 pole, but if you're running mobility, long distance mobility, it needs to be almost 1 to 10, and urban mobility maybe 1 to 25, something like that. So, and it has to be fast charging. So
demand for superchargers.
Yeah, demand for supercharging, I think, is the most underestimated thing in the industry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so interesting, Rahul. Really appreciate you coming on the show and explaining all this. I'm going to be following Tesloop closely. I haven't ridden in a Tesloop yet, but I feel like I need to soon.
Yeah, great. And we're going to be putting out some data, taking the ARC Invests open source robotaxi models. We've modified those. We're proofing it. We're going to release those for everybody to kind of look at all the economics and network economics that I think will be really interesting, and we'll model both urban and long distance for people to see. And I think once you look at that, the way you look at Tesla will be very different, because the revenue potential of a car, even without full autonomy in a commercial scenario, is such a huge multiple over what Tesla can make now selling a car.
Wow. And on that, that's a great note to end it on. Anyway, thank you so much, man. Had a great chat.